cities on Earth will rise out of this mud. So why here? Why this small, forgettable island? You are standing on a low, swampy island covered in mangroves. It is hot, wet, and quiet. There is no city here. In front of you, warm green water. Behind you, the very tip of a long peninsula trailing down from the mainland of Asia. Mud, trees, the cries of birds, and a few wooden fishing boats pulled up on the shore. That is all. There is no harbor full of cranes, no towers, no name the world would know. In 200 years, a huge share of everything the human race trades will pass within sight of this exact spot. One of the richest cities on Earth will rise out of this mud. So why here? Why this small, forgettable island, and not the 1,000 other islands scattered across these seas? Look at the water around you. The answer is not on the island at all. It is in the sea lanes that run past it. Pull back and look at the whole map of Asia from above. To the west lies the Indian Ocean, and beyond it India, the Middle East, and Europe. To the east lies the South China Sea, and beyond it China, Japan, and the Pacific. Between these two vast worlds of trade hangs a giant barrier of land and islands. A ship sailing from Europe to China cannot go straight through. It has to find a gap. And the main gap is a long, narrow stretch of water called the Strait of Malacca, running between the island of Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula. Picture that strait as a funnel. At its wide western end, the open Indian Ocean. At its narrow eastern end, where the peninsula finally runs out, sits your little mangrove island. Almost every ship traveling between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea is squeezed through this one corridor. And right at the choke point, the pinch of the funnel, is where you are standing. This is the secret. A city does not always rise because of what is on its land. Sometimes it rises because of what must pass by it. Could a ship just avoid the funnel and go around? It could. Further south, other gaps cut through the Indonesian islands, like the Sunda Strait and the Lombok Strait. But they sit well out of the way, and they add days and extra fuel to a long voyage. For most ships running between Europe, the Middle East, India, and East Asia, the Strait of Malacca is simply the shortest, most sensible path. So they come this way. They almost always have. So how much actually passes by? Today, the Strait of Malacca is one of the busiest shipping lanes on the entire planet. Tens of thousands of vessels thread through it every year, carrying roughly a quarter of all the goods traded by sea: oil, electronics, clothing, food, raw materials. If this single strait closed, supply chains across the world would seize up. That is the river of trade flowing past your island, and it has been flowing in one form or another for a very, very long time. Because people understood this spot long before any modern port existed. Back in the 1300s, there was already a trading settlement on this island. It appears in old records under names like Temasek, and later Singapura, which means Lion City. It sat in a world of powerful maritime kingdoms, trading, and sometimes fighting over the same precious choke point. The island changed hands, rose, faded, and for a while became little more than a fishing village again. But the geography never stopped being valuable. The funnel was always there, waiting. Then, in 1819, a single decision lit the fuse. A British official named Sir Stamford Raffles, working for the East India Company, sailed to the island and recognized exactly what it was: a natural gateway at the meeting point of the world's sea routes, with a deep, sheltered harbor. He struck a deal for the British to establish a trading post there, and he did one thing that changed everything. He made it a free port. That phrase is the whole story, so let's decode it. In most ports, when you bring in goods to buy, sell, or pass along, you pay taxes and duties on them. Those costs add up, and traders avoid them where they can. A free port charges little or nothing. Goods can flow in, get stored, get swapped, and flow back out with barely any toll. Now combine that with the geography. You have the one island every ship already has to sail past, and you declare that ships can stop there and trade almost for free. What do you think happens? Everyone comes. Merchants poured in from across Asia and beyond. Chinese, Malay, Indian, Arab, and European traders settled side by side, each bringing their goods, their languages, and their networks. The island became a giant marketplace of the sea. what is called an entrepot, a place where goods from everywhere are landed, gathered, and shipped back out again. You might bring tea from China and leave with cotton from India, without either ship ever having to make the entire journey itself. And then the world handed Singapore an enormous gift. In 1869, on the other side of Asia, the Suez Canal opened, cutting a shortcut between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Suddenly, ships from Europe could reach Asia far faster, sailing through the Red Sea, across the Indian Ocean, and straight toward the Strait of Malacca. The amount of traffic funneling past Singapore exploded. Steamships needed coal, repairs, supplies, and a place to trade. And there sat the perfect stop, right at the choke point. The little mangrove island had become one of the great ports of the world. It helped that the harbor itself was excellent. The water close to the island ran deep and sheltered, calm enough for the largest ships to anchor and load in safety. A perfect position at the choke point was already good. A perfect position with a deep, calm harbor sitting right there was almost unbeatable. Now watch the city itself grow around the harbor. Docks and warehouses crowded the shoreline. Districts filled in behind them for the traders and workers who kept the port alive. A whole society assembled itself out of the people the trade routes carried in, which is why, to this day, the city speaks many languages and holds many cultures layered on top of one another. The story was not always smooth. The island passed through hard chapters, including a brutal occupation during the Second World War. And in 1965, after a brief and rocky union with Malaysia, Singapore became a fully independent country, a single city that was also an entire nation, with almost no natural resources of its own. Think about how strange that should be. A tiny island, no oil fields, no farmland to speak of, no vast territory. By every ordinary rule, it should have stayed poor. Instead, it became one of the wealthiest places on Earth. And the reason is the same reason there was a trading post here in the 1300s, and the same reason Raffles came in 1819, the location. Singapore took the one unchangeable advantage it had, its position at the gate between two oceans, and built everything on top of it. It turned its port into one of the busiest on the planet, a place where ships from all over the world arrive, swap their cargo, and move on. The island that produces almost nothing grew rich by handling what everyone else makes. That is also why the world's great powers watch this strait so closely. Whoever can keep the gate open, or one day shut it, holds a hand on the throat of global trade. A patch of water you could sail across in an afternoon helps keep the lights on in factories thousands of miles away. So look at it now. Around 6 million people on an island you could drive across in under an hour. A skyline of glittering towers rising straight out of that old mangrove mud. And just offshore, day and night, a slow, constant parade of cargo ships, hundreds of them, waiting their turn, stacked with steel boxes, sliding through the same narrow water that funneled the very first traders here centuries ago. None of it was an accident. The land did not make Singapore rich. The sea did. Or, more precisely, the single unavoidable gap in the map that the sea had to flow through, and the choice, made again and again across the centuries, to throw the doors open and let the whole world trade. You are standing on a low, swampy island covered in mangroves. The mud is buried under concrete now. The fishing boats are gone, replaced by some of the largest ships ever built. But the water is still doing exactly what it always did, pouring through the narrowest gap between two oceans, quietly explaining, if you know how to look, why the whole world still sails through Singapore.